Good afternoon, everybody. I can chat for a couple of minutes as people are starting to come in quite aggressively. Hope everybody is having a good day today. As I and many of my employees have been talking about lately, we're going to have some CMMC fun. In fact, that's what we actually called it when we were doing our prep for our own assessment. Looks like we've got a reasonable. I'll give it one more minute. While we're doing that, just a few of the basics of the webinar. Questions are allowed as we progress through the content. Raise your hand up at the top. Click on it, and Michael, who's supporting us, will let you in and let you go and ask your questions. If you also want to do a chat question, click on the Q&A up at the top of the menu. And then we'll be publishing a video transcript of this next week. And we'll be sending that out to all attendees. Before I get going, is there any questions from anybody? Okay, let's get going. What happened on July 13th? The Department of War issued a press release and an administrative order on CMMC. They announced the pausing of all CMMC Phase 2 requirements. This is probably current. Thank you there, Michael. I'm not sure I was presenting. Pausing the CMMC Phase 2 requirements. What does that actually mean? So if you look at the little table over on the right-hand side, we're already in Phase 1, and that's the inclusion of Level 1 or Level 2 self-assessments. Level 2 C3PAO certifications were also authorized. Starting in Phase 2, CP3AO requirements are going to be required for the first 1/3 of all DOW contracts. Sorry guys, I spent way too many years in uniform when the DOW was the DOD. So Phase 2, they would have started, it's a rolling process, but they would have gone through and said, okay, these are the first third of contracts. And as they came up for either for recompetition, they would have required a C3PAO CMMC certification in order to bid. You couldn't bid and say, well, I'll get compliant after the fact. You still had to bid, right? And then in Phase 3, the next third, and in Phase 4, the final third. At the completion of Phase 4, the plan was that anybody that wanted to do most of the more technical, the more sensitive, larger contracts would have had to have a CMMC certification. So that's what has changed. Phases 2, 3, and 4 are on hold. It's a 60-day hold. There are several possible outcomes at the end of the 60 days. Probably the least unlikely outcome is the Department of War come back and say, yeah, no, we reviewed it. We're just moving forward with the way it was. I don't think that's going to happen, but that is a possibility. I think there will be some laxing of the requirements, and I'll actually get into a little bit more detail what I think will occur at the end of this presentation. What hasn't changed is maintaining compliance with NIST SP 800-171, and that does mean 800-171A, which is all 320 AOs, and to complete a Level 1 or a Level 2 self-assessment. The self-assessment in SPRS is not exactly what we were doing a long time ago. late last year, they released a update, and instead of the NIST 800-171 tab, you now had a new CMMC tab. So you have to do it there. And I'll get into that in a few minutes as well. The SBA co-released, or a coordinated release, of a press release on CMMC and their take. The biggest thing that the SBA noticed was the assessment capacity. They are now estimating about 120,000 small businesses need a C3PAO assessment. Right now, there's 110, according to the Cyber AB. SBA estimated 100. I'd say that's accurate. And you figure out, even with adding new C3PAOs, best ballpark, it's somewhere around a 20-year window to get all of those 120,000 through. And if you think about it, if you do it now, then in 3 years, then the next organization comes up for review. And then another one comes up for review, and it starts to grow, right? There just is not enough capacity in the C3PAOs to meet the current demand. Regardless of any other consideration, there's not enough. The SBA did say that cybersecurity remains a priority, that NIST 80171 is still mandatory. They expressed concerns about assessment cost. They had what I thought was some very pessimistic thoughts on what the cost would be. In the press release, they quoted a number of $600,000. They gave no specifics. Is that just to get somebody through? If we can do it for a small fraction of that. It was a very interesting announcement. And they also highlighted the Department of War's acquisition transformation system and its importance. There is a SAM.gov CMMC reform notice out there. The responses are due basically in a month from the published date of the announcement. So that gives the DOWs another 30 days to see if they can come up with some solutions. There are 7 RFI questions. The number one is top 5 most prohibited cost drivers. Well, CMMC is a huge cost driver, right? Getting DoD level cybersecurity for a small business, particularly if they're doing it by themselves, that's huge. What security controls, have you found that are the most bothersome? And I'll talk more about this at the end. What regulatory requirements and security controls could be reduced? Any commercial cybersecurity capabilities that might be recommended. Face self-one assessments or administrative techniques that it's problematic, right? Again, they're trying to look for the pain points. And then the last 2 questions, what actionable policy changes or regulatory reforms could the Department of War implement in the next 60 days to reduce cost and barriers? I have a great thought on that. And what longer-term policy changes or reforms against cyber attacks? Making 80171 go away is not going to help you protect against cyber attacks. If anybody wants to go take a look at the RFI, just do a quick capture of this, and it'll take you right to the page. What to do while the Department of War analyzes CMMC. The requirement for 712, the NIST 800-171 Rev 2, has not gone away, right? So this has been out there since 2015. It's interesting that the announcement kind of implies that most of the DIB is lying or has not implemented 800-171. In my personal experience, that's very true. They have not. And then the 721 clause, and in particular, it's the new method of CMMC status, not your NIST 800-171 status. That is a November 10th update. It was coincided with the update of the and publishing of the final rule. So this is what's a little bit different. The old SPRS location over here, you would go in and click on this. And when you clicked on it, you got up a little screen. That screen gave you you filled out your information. There was no warning banners. There was nothing. You just filled it out and hit submit, and then you had a score, right? Today, you need to go into SPRS filing. And clicking on this new Level 2 self-assessment, I think is the most significant change the department has made in the CMMC program. This warning barrier, warning message right here. Warning, misrepresentation of a CMMC compliance status to the government may result in criminal prosecution, including actions under Section 1001, Title 18, the United States Code, Civil Liability under the False Claims Act. I mean, this is huge. I mean, now because you acknowledge it, you are affirming that your SPRS score is accurate. June 18th, LogZone Inc., the DOJ announced that they had fined them $508,000. I can tell you, for most small businesses, $500,000. I mean, it might not be a death blow, but it's sure going to be a hurt. For some small businesses, it's a death blow. They have to file bankruptcy. LogZone Inc. was filing scores, and had filed them for many years, saying that they had a score of 110. DIBCAT came in and reviewed them. I'm not sure what they did to get on the bad side and have DIBCAT come in and take a look at them. DIBCAT, which is the Cyber Assessment Center, a Defense Industrial Base Cyber Assessment Center, found that their actual score was minus 173. So they went from an actual reported score of 110, a perfect score, to minus 173. The worst score you can get is 203. So, I mean, maybe they turned on multi-factor authentication and they had a system security plan or something. I'm not exactly sure what they had done to get such a low score, but that resulted in a $500,000 fine for them. In the new model, so once you click acknowledge on the warning barrier, so you go up here and click acknowledge, this is the screen that comes up. And hopefully this is familiar to most of you. And you have to go in, and for each one of the family members, you have to click met, not met, or not applicable. And if you click met, you are affirming that you have actually met not only the AC, Access Control 3.1.1 control, you are affirming that you have met 3.1.1a, 1b, c, d, e, and f. Every single one of these, right? So this is a big deal. And I think you're going to see a lot of organizations getting into trouble on this over the next year. And here's a sample self-assessment. You download it. A lot of our Defense Logistic Agency customers are requiring this to be submitted to them. DLA is also asking many of its vendors to report a score of 110, which I would imagine there are some that are saying, hey, I'm not sure about this. Are there any questions at this time?
There is a chat, David. It's possible to replay the session later if needed.
Yes, it is possible to replay this later. We're going to be publishing this to both our webpage and to YouTube, and it'll be available for you later.